The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk about it.
Why should I vote? No one takes note, is what we hear some people say, while lying, divisive, insensitive, misogynistic, manipulative, hate-filled, evil politicians go on their merry way. They show they don't care. Behaviors we should not continue to accept, actions too shameful to bear. The slaughters, the bombs. This is our reality. This is not fake. How much more will we choose to take? Why should I vote? It won't change a thing. Change is what your vote must bring. Why should we vote? People died for the right. They fought by day and night. Death would not have been the case had it been for the right of a different race. If our vote did not matter, if right was not right, why was there such a fight to prevent it? Why was there such heartache, misery, and pain? Who is to benefit? Who is to gain? Let's be clear. Your vote is exactly what they fear. We can change the trajectory of what is happening today, getting the attitudes and behaviors we don't need or want out of office and out of the way of justice, liberty, and freedom for all. Without your vote, we are all about to fall. Refusing to vote, you really have no say. Willing or not, accept come what may. The hate and lies will continue. Maligning our governmental systems and free press will have no end. Disenfranchisement and voter suppression will win. The attacks will persist, possibly escalate on our children, women, the old, sick, and many of our men. Why should you vote? Please take note. Your vote matters more than you know. It's the only way to show those in power we will not take their corruption and evil anymore. It is our way to speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. Now is the time. This is the hour. Now is the time. This is the hour. I'm telling you,
Now is the time. We're here today to talk about a very serious topic that's impacting and affecting all of our lives. I have two professional experts here today to talk about racism and the impact that it's having on our societies, on our families, on us as a whole. United we stand, divided we fall. Hello, Rita. How are you doing, Dr. Rita? I can't hear you. You're muted.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that you are here. You've been my guest before, and tonight I'm having you and Professor Kamau talk about these issues. But before I pull him up, let me share with our audience a little bit about Dr. Rita Fierro. She uncovers the origins of governmental systems that create and perpetuates oppression. See how governmental bureaus were separated to deal with the rich and poor differently, and how this division created and sustained the economic and social divide, encapsulating in race. By understanding the inception and design of these institutions, we can move readily dismantling them and creating a fair American society. As an author, she uncovers and dismantles persistent systems of oppression that are resistant to change. As a speaker with a fiery and inspiring speaking style, Dr. Rita weaves storytelling, history, systems analyst, and trailblazing research. She will leave any audience thinking of more critically and inspired about who they are and how they bring forth freedom and justice in the world. As a consultant, Dr. Rita has increased the effectiveness of organizations internationally and committed to reducing racism and sexism by aligning their internal cultures with their values and measuring their results. That is Dr. Rita Fierro, and she is well equipped to talk about the issues that we're going to be talking about today. And let me pull up my other guests, Professor Kamau Kenyatta. How are you today? Professor, how are you doing today? Can you hear me? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Okay. You need to unmute yourself. Let me share about Professor. Okay, something happened. Well, anyway, while he's coming back, let me share. And I don't say this about many guests, but but before we get started, you need to know who you're with today. He is a guest that has spent his entire career doing something most professors wouldn't dare do, telling the truth. Not the watered down, textbook approved, make everybody comfortable version of Black history, but the real history, the history that powerfully, okay, he's coming back. The history that powerfully expresses how powerful people have spent centuries burying and burning and erasing because they knew what might happen if Black people ever got their hands on it. That man is Professor Kamau Kenyatta. He's taught at William Patterson University, Lafayette College, and Lehigh University. He holds a doctorate level training from Temple University, Princeton Theological Seminary, and New Jersey City University. I'm pulling him up. I've just shared a little bit about you. And how are you today?
I'm doing great. I think I got disconnected for a minute there, but
Yes,
I'm
you
doing
did
great.
for a minute, but I'm glad you're back. And,
Yes.
and we've got some awesome stuff to talk about. Now, as with all my guests, I always ask, what was your childhood like and how did it shape you to do and be the person that you are? And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Rita.
Um, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me, Vera.
Yes.
Um, I, as young as I can remember, I was always an extremely empathic kid. My mom tells stories of me in nursery school, kind of walking down the hallway with, there were two twins who were kind of small figured, and I was always kind of stocky. And so I used to walk down the hallway in nursery school with like one kid under one arm and one under the other. And definitely had a savior complex that I would have to come to terms with. And I did come to terms with later on. But as long as I can remember, I was always extremely empathic and tuned into the emotions and the feelings of people around me. And I guess we would say standing up for the underdog. Like I was definitely doing that from nursery school. Like we have family stories about that happening when I was 3 and 4 years old. So um, I was raised in the Bronx from Italian parents. And I would say that well, there are two big phases of my life. It's like the Bronx, which was before age 10, and then when my parents moved me to Italy at age 10. And so in the Bronx, I was always an odd, I kind of never fit into people's molds. I always danced to my own drum. I was bigger in figure and more curvaceous than any of the girls my age. And I was always kind of quirky and creative and very, at the same time, lively and lighthearted. Even if there was a lot happening at home, there was always a lot happening at home. There was a lot of drama in our home, but I was kind of this very lively, lighthearted kid. When we moved to Italy, kind of all of that switched against me, and I had the experience of being scapegoated not just by groups of people, but actually by a whole town. Because
Wow.
Southern Italy has a love-hate relationship with the United States. And that's a long story that I'll spare you. But I think that's since, while I always was a sensitive kind of kid, I think having the experience of being scapegoated on my own skin is definitely what had me tune into more the injustices of racism and wanting to be better and stand for a better world no matter what.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Professor, I keep wanting to call you doctor. I know you have your doctorate, but you prefer to be called professor. So, Professor, can you share what was your childhood like and how did it mold you to be so into wanting people to understand our history?
Well, I actually grew up on a farm. I'm from South Carolina. Shout out to my family and friends who might be on here from South Carolina. And I wasn't that much involved with it, though I was involved directly in the racism of the 1960s and 1970s, but kind of oblivious to it. It wasn't until I moved to New Jersey after graduating high school and went to college and so forth. And it wasn't until I got my first job that I had an incident that happened that really just smacked me dab in the face about the racism that I thought didn't exist. And so I'll have to share that story some other time. But it was when I was in working on my master's at Princeton Theological Seminary that I encountered some gentlemen who became my mentors that set me on the different path completely. That opened my eyes to much of what was going on in the lives of Black people and what was going on in this country and in the world. And of course, being introduced to Malcolm X and others also informed me and the direction that my life has taken. And so I became a professor or teacher of African American studies to share what I have with others, because I was denied it all through high school, all through my schooling, just like everyone else.
Yes.
And so my job now is to provide a systematic way for our people to have access to that information.
Okay. That's amazing. Now let's get to the nuts and bolts of this conversation and why we are here. So I want both of you to just kind of share your take on what's happening, why it's happening, and then we're going to talk about what we can do about it. So we're just going to have dialogue and talk about this. But first, I do want to acknowledge some people that are chiming in. Futina Kirkendall, she says, South Carolina in the house.
Right.
Yes. And then Kalada
Kalada,
Lewis. She,
chastity.
yes. And then she also says, hi, everyone. Listen, thank you guys for listening. And please share this with other people. And feel free to put in your comments in the chat as we're talking about this issue, because this is a very important issue. And I want each of you to tell us, why is this so important? And who wants to start?
Professor Kenyatta, can you start since I started the prior round? I'd like to follow you.
Okay,
to follow your lead.
you're asking about the current political
The
situation
current
and so forth?
political situation, and then, you know, and I know you got some history to fall back on with it, so just share.
Well, how we arrived here is a long, short story, I should say. The country, when President Barack Obama was elected president, many people thought that the country had made a major milestone turn, and many were calling it the post-racial America. And I had been teaching in my classes for years before that, because I saw some other things happening that, and I called it the illusion of inclusion that we had in terms of the Black community had now at this point going on 3 generations of people who grew up with that illusion of inclusion, because after the 1970s in particular, it seemed like all of the past had resolved itself and we were being included in everything. But as I said, I grew up in South Carolina and on a farm, and I know the type of people on the other side. I know them, and I know how they can pretend to be a certain way. And I would see them in the national light, and I'm like, these people haven't changed. They're just in disguise. They're in disguise. And I kept saying it, and I hope that I would be wrong, that that wouldn't be the case. But with the election of the rodeo cowboy in the White House, it said something about this country that he shined a light on, or he pulled back the rocks where a lot of bugs and so forth had been hiding, so to speak, and they were let loose, and he gave them a almost a right to say and do the things that they've been wanting to say and do, but felt that they were being held back, because you will hear them say, he's saying what I want to say. And if he's saying what you want to say, that's telling us everything we need to know, because he's very clear I call him an old-fashioned, old-time white racist supremacist, because that's what he is. And he tries to hide it. The people around him try to hide it, but it's so obvious that
And
they
it's
they
blatant.
they, they think that we can't see. But not only just for us, but other things that he does. It's infantile in the way that he's approached things, but it has given a license and to him and those around him, and I would say that includes Congress as well. They are spineless slime. The whole thing that we grew up with, being taught about the American Constitution, about law and order and justice and so forth. This man should not even, he should be in prison.
Absolutely.
If I were convicted of 34 count felonies,
You
they
couldn't
would
step
have
foot in the White
cemented me
House.
into the prison.
Yes.
And we're going to pretend like the country wants us to pretend like everything is normal, and it's not. And you see the trouble he's gotten us into, or the country into, over in Iraq. They got something for him. They got his butt in a sling over there, and they've been preparing for this for 20 years, because 30 years. I've been watching that piece for years, and so I knew. I'm like, all the other presidents before him were smart enough to,
Leave
hey,
it
no,
alone.
we're not gonna do that. But he let Netanyahu talk him into going in there, and that faction. And so this is where we are. And now you have where, and I'll wind this up, where they have broached now the subject of eradicating the 13th Amendment. The Speaker of the House in Alabama, fellow by the name of Nathaniel Ledbetter, said unabashedly, it's time for us to get rid of the 13th Amendment.
And you want to share with the audience about the 13th Amendment?
And the 13th Amendment is the amendment that freed African people, Black people, from slavery. In a nutshell, it's the amendment that freed Black people from slavery. So he wants to get rid of that. And so if you can think about, if that is eradicated, what are the implications for it? But he has broached the subject, and they are slowly talking about it, and it's building. And so it's imperative for the African American community to begin to do some things before to act offensively rather than defensively.
Yes, absolutely. And that's deep, because I know they want to take us back to Jim Crow, but to try to eradicate
Now they want to
to
go before, they want to go beyond Jim Crow.
beyond Reconstruction. They want to go
Yeah.
take us back to slavery.
They
Well,
want to go back to that.
Rita, Dr. Rita, what is your take on all of this?
I think it's important to look at the cycles, as Professor Kamau is saying as well, Professor Kenyatta. I like to look at, kind of break it down to some things that are same and some things that are different. So on the front of what's the same, despite all the clenching our pearls moments of, this is not America. Yes, this is absolutely America. Our country was founded on cycles of progressive action and backlash. Like, backlash is an integral part of our nation and the way it was built, and it's an integral part of how our institutions react to change. So backlash is not new. Reconstruction, which you were mentioning, Vera, is a period in 1877 when, after the compromise and the first contested presidential election. So our first presidential contested voting election happens in 1877. That's a very long time ago. Most people think about Gore and think that was like Gore Bush was the first one. It was not. And in that year, the compromise that the South and the North come to is that the South the South will allow the Republican president, which at the time was supported by the North, as long as the federal troops are removed from the South. And those federal troops are what were ensuring that African Americans were having some improvement. We can't even say equality at that point, but some improvement of life. It was what was allowing African Americans to vote. And what the history books say around this is that it was the pivotal moment in which the North won the politics. Like it won the fictional narrative of the United States of equality and rights, but actually the South won the ideological war. Because what it means is that the racism of the South never really got completely uprooted. It just got shoved under the carpet. And I would say what we're experiencing now is this coming from out of everything from under the carpet, as it does this in cycles. And it's not new to see it in cycles. The other thing I'll add to the voting rights, given the beautiful video that you brought up, is that what's happening to the voting rights, I call in my book the merry-go-round effect. And different systems do backlash in different ways. Some systems, like the foster care system, I call a merry-go-round system because they keep changing the criteria. But the bottom line is always the same. The bottom line is that children of color are mistreated compared to all other children. And so I think that's what's happening with the voting rights. They just keep changing the criteria as long as the bottom line is the same, which is let's keep Black representation as limited as we can. So these are the things I would say. These are the two things. I mean, there are many, but these are the two things that stand out to me as the most alike the history. And again, I think one of you definitely, I think it was you, Vera, who said it. Those who are not, there's a famous quote, those who don't study their own history are bound to repeat it.
Yeah.
As long as we're not familiar with this history, we're going to end up repeating it because we don't actually know it well enough to even start to talk about how to strategize to stop it. Yeah. Because every time it catches us by surprise, hence the clutching pearls moment. The thing that's new, and I think is really important and gives also space for personal action and activism, is that the old money has joined with tech money. And that is something that we're watching. We're watching it happen fast. It's furious. Our data is out there. We need to divest from the tech giants, and we need to start doing so pretty quickly. And it's not easy, right? It's not easy. I'm still using a Gmail account, right? It's not easy to get off Google. It's not easy to get off lots of these platforms. But we really need to, because we need to reclaim our power. And I know you said you wanted to talk later about solutions. I think it's really important for us to reclaim our power, because the more of our information is hand of the tech giants and their alliance with this oligarchy of rich white men and old money, we're going to be in danger.
Well, we're in danger already.
We are.
And it's really scary. That's why I felt this conversation is so important, because people need to understand what's going on. And the undermining of our voting and all the things. There are just so many things, and you guys are the experts, so I'm going to shut up and just let you guys be at it. Just share your hearts and solutions. And Professor, kind of talk about now, one of the things with you have a course that you are making available online for people to begin to learn. Let's talk about your course. Let me pull up the link And I want you to talk about the course as well as talk about the things and the impact that it's having on us.
Okay, the reason that I have the course is it's a baby that I had years and years ago when I was teaching in universities and so forth. I always thought about how I would be able to take it to a larger audience that what I was doing in the classroom, because I could see that that space that I was in at that time wasn't going to last, and it was very, very limited. I mean, in most classes, I have 30, 35 students and maybe two or three classes per semester. And online, like with that same course, I can have hundreds of students that are getting that information. And I've seen the impact that it's had on students' lives. I have students now who are teaching college themselves and so forth. But the impetus for the class is the fact that when I would go online, when I go online and I see information about Black history and so forth, and you would see a little bit here, a fragment there, and I know that they don't know the history, don't know the history. What we know are fragments of our history that we're trying to put together. We get some from this person, something that we read over here, and we're trying to put it together. And the reason that is because the school system has not provided a systematic study of African people's history in this country. I
And they're eliminating what little there was.
Yes, and now they're trying to eliminate what they think is just a massive amount of information. I got no Black history when I was in elementary school, no systematic approach to it. In elementary school, high school, I had one course when I was in college, when I first entered college, and it was a literature course, and that was it. And that's about the same for anyone if you go to college. And so some places you may have some teachers that may give you more information. So people have had teachers that have given them more information, but there is no systematic way. If we learned mathematics the way we learn African American history, we would be a very, very
Inept.
ignorant people, you know. And we have to take those steps back, because you hear people say, talk as if they know the history, and they don't. And what they do know is what happened here in the United States. And you will hear our people saying, well, when we were slaves, and there's a reason why they say that. It's because that's as far as they can go back. And if they try to go further than that, if they try to go to Africa, they will say, well, we were kings and queens in Africa. Well, the fact of the matter is, everybody was not a king or a queen. You can't have all kings and queens. Somebody got to do the cooking. Somebody got to do the farming. Somebody got to do the teaching. All of that. We had systems, full-grown systems in Africa that they have deliberately kept hidden from us. And that's what this course is attempting to do, to start from the beginning, and so you can have a systematic way in which to see and understand things. And we start with racism. Well, we first start with Black people being the first people on the planet, the documentation for that. And then we start talking about racism. We go through the ancient Egyptian civilization, because they've just stolen that, just claimed that the ancient Egyptians were white people. And they've shown us that in movies and cartoons. So people don't even know. And I think it was a couple of years ago, the comedian, what's his name? The short comedian.
Heart.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
He was supposed to appear in Egypt, and he had made a statement about the ancient Egyptians being Black, and they canceled his performance, and they were outraged. How dare he call the ancient Egyptians, black people, and so forth. And these are Arabs who are there now, by the way. So I go into a lot of this stuff that we don't get. I was fortunate to have the mentors that I had, to have to read the books and the materials that I've been exposed to. And so what that course is sharing it with people. Now the course is, there's a cost to the course, and the cost is actually a steal because it's per month, and I'm going to change up some things. I'm going to put it in shorter versions for people, and the reason I'm charging for it because people don't value what they don't pay for. I have learned that. I have taught this stuff for free for years, and I mean, it's costing me to put it up, so I have to cover my costs primarily. That's what it's covering. I'm not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, but people value what they have to put some money into it. They'll show up, to the classes, and so that's what that is about. I started it this year, and that, to give a little background, one of my daughters, Aaliyah, she had been kind of pumping me for a couple of years. Daddy, you need to go on TikTok and stuff, and with the information. She said, because people are in there with all kinds of information. You got a whole bunch of, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna get involved with that. And then year before last, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I went on, and I got a very, very good response from that. And so I said, maybe there is a need here. And that kind of gave me, because the technology, it took me almost a year just to figure out the technology to be able to put it together. And this week I've been doing stuff, putting out fires here and there.
Okay. Awesome. So you are doing some things on TikTok, and I highly recommend that you do that. And I know, Rita, you are too. But anyway, go ahead.
TikTok, I'm not on TikTok as much. I got a whole bunch of stuff up there on TikTok. But when Donald Trump and his friends got partnered with TikTok, I'm like, oh, no, I got to get off of here.
Okay.
And I made an announcement about it. I'm not over there anymore. I don't trust them. I wonder why. I don't trust all of them, but that one, they just told you who is in wrong.
Yes.
I'm like, nah, I don't want to. I know that they. I don't trust what they will do. There are other platforms. I know I'm on Red Note, which is out of China. There's another one out of Palestine, actually. I forget the name of it, but there are other platforms that are available as well. They may not be well known, but they're available.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll come back to the other part of the question. And Rita, you are doing some things as well that you wanted to make sure we talked about. So do you want to share?
Sure.
That you're doing?
I do, and I want to link it with Black history for a second. As a fellow, a colleague of Professor Kenyatta on that front, I think what's important is that the way we teach history, in particular Black history, except for professors like Professor Kenyatta, which is why I think what you're doing is so precious, doesn't always serve the contexts we're in and the social change that we need. And so 3 things I always invite people to look for the organization behind the person, right? Like we talk about Martin Luther King, but we don't often talk about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was the organization that hired him, and they hired him because he was not well known. Like this is something that they hired him because he was a not well known preacher, and they were trying to create a bridge between the Baptist and the Methodist Church and unite the 2 churches, right? So that's just to say that was one of many strategic choices of the civil rights movement. And part of the loss of the civil rights movement, the number of people who were incarcerated and killed, is that there's a part of the strategy building of the civil rights movement that didn't get necessarily handed over to the next generation. And if we are to study history, what's really important is that we actually study that strategy, the strategy of social movements, the strategy of activism. And we're so far from that oftentimes in how we study history, because we're looking at it as individual people and personas. And that's not the case. The other piece, and I care about this a lot because in part of my education was in Italy, since my parents moved me to Italy when I was 10, as I was saying before. And there was an Italian philosopher who used to say that the study of history is the study of historical cycles. So the study of history is the story of how history repeats itself. And so what's really important in how we teach history is how do we look at, okay, what are the circumstances that create a certain situation, and what is unresolved that has it come back, right? Like if we studied history in that way, we would not be in the times that we're in right now. And the last thing I want to say is how inequality is the inequality of institutions, not people. So the piece around systemic racism is that it's our institutions, like our institutions have inequality embedded in them. And that's why they backlash. They backlash because all institutions tend to preserve the status quo. And so to your question, Vera, and I'm pretty sure Professor Kenyatta, we've had enough conversations about history that I don't think we have a disagreement there. I'm pretty sure that I haven't seen your course personally. I haven't taken it, but I know that we're aligned in how we look at history.
I was glad to hear you said about the strategy and so forth, because oftentimes what gets lost when we talk about the study of history, and I was a victim of it too. I hated history, at least the way it was taught to us in school, until I was in my master's program, and it dawned on me, wow, this is how you understand everything. This is where everything is at. But the way they teach it is designed to make you not like it.
Yes.
So what I do in the class is not just the giving of information or sharing of information or learning facts, dates, and names and so forth for the sake of that. That's irrelevant. The goal is to, okay, now that we have a perspective on what has happened and what's going on, now we'll have a better idea of what we need to do. Because oftentimes people just want to run out and just do something not fully understanding. You just want to go on the field and play the game without first understanding the game that you get in.
Yes.
And so that's what this course is about. This is what my courses, my teaching have been about all from the beginning, because that's the way I was trained. You got to have an insight here. What are you going to do with this information? So what? Sunni Ali Bear was the king of the Songhai Empire, and he did this. What does that teach us? So Mansa Musa was the richest man that ever lived. So what? So now, what do we do with that information? What does that tell us about African people, first of all, contrary to what they told us about African people? And then what is possible? Because that's what we're always looking at. What is possible? We cannot develop a mindset of defeatism, a nihilism. And this society now, coming back to this is what it will do to you if you don't have anything else to hold on to. It just seems hopeless. It just seems like they just winning. They're not. They may be winning temporarily, but we know that we can fight. We can look at what happened during the civil rights movements and other movements in the Black community when they're during slavery, enslavement. I mean, talk about hopelessness,
Yes.
but eventually you're able to see a brighter day. And that is always the case. We can win. These people who are in charge of the world right now will not always be in charge of the world. Remember Rome. Rome thought that
Right.
it was it. Greece thought that it was it. And they're not anymore. You
And
know,
Professor,
so
I want to interrupt you for a
mhm.
second. And not only that, but like people during enslavement weren't sitting on their hands waiting for a brighter day, right?
Exactly.
Like, not
Exactly.
only was there not hopelessness, there was problem solving and strategizing and what is now called sensing into the system
Hmm.
for solutions every step of the way. So
Yes.
whether it was, you know, attempting revolts or hiding in the swamps or using hair patterns
Hmm.
um,
The so-called
quilts to
spirituals.
show, yeah,
Yeah.
to show, like there were strategy building the whole way. And
Exactly.
for our listeners,
Exactly.
I really recommend the Bayard Rustin
I have to
documentary
see.
on
Yes,
I
I've
have
Netflix.
to
seen
see
it.
that.
I've
I
Because
was
seen it.
I was in
one of the things
Lancaster.
one of the
I was
things
in
I love
Lancaster.
about it, what just one
Okay.
second, one of the things I love about it is that you really get how every step of the way he was coordinating with other people to generate strategy. So
Hmm.
this is a
Yes.
time for strategy building. And there are people doing this and there are organizations doing it. It's just not on the surface, right? The organizations
Yeah.
I know that are doing strategy building right now, I'm not going to talk about them because I would make them more vulnerable. So
Yes.
we
Yes.
also need to know that there are people doing the work. They're just not gonna, put an announcement on the front page news. Otherwise, our strategy is screwed.
The
So
Right.
I just
revolution
wanted
will
to
not
say
be
that.
televised.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
so, so yeah, I was
Exactly.
gonna say when you mentioned Bayard Rustard, I was in Lancaster this past week, and I did a walking tour, African American walking tour that they offer there. And the tour guide brought up, we were talking about strategy and so forth, and she brought up the whole notion. She brought that movie up, and I said, I've been meaning to watch because he is so pivotal to the civil rights movement, but most
Yes.
people don't know anything about him. So I want to watch that. So in terms of right now where we are, I have two strategies there, not the be all, the end all, but I think that two of the strategies that we need to do, and this is coming from history, I think that one of the most successful things that the African American community did was the Montgomery bus boycott. I mean, they broke the back of that in Alabama for a year. They didn't
Mm,
boycott the buses for a day or two because I'll
no.
hear stuff will come up and they'll say we're going to boycott such and such for a day. I'm like, a day?
Mm-mm.
They
I
can take
agree.
they take a vacation for a day or even a week. They can take a vacation and come back and nothing has changed. With that Montgomery bus boycott,
It was two
they
years, wasn't
took
it?
a year. It took a year of them walking, riding bicycles, and what do you call it? Carpooling to do that. So at this juncture, the language that's being spoken, and we saw it at the inauguration with all of the tech companies and other companies, big companies aligned to siphon more money out of people and pay them less. Their language is money. That is the language that they understand. And
Yes.
we, in terms of a strategy, I would think of some sort, identify an industry or a company. Well, Target was one of them that we saw what happened with Target was very, very powerful. And people are still not going
Yes.
back to Target.
Right.
Was very good. That shows how effective that can be. But I would go even further. I don't want Target to change their ways and do better. No, I want to run them out of business because they have shown us who they are. Run them out of town, and then we can take over Target or some kind of co-op and run if we must have those type of things. So I think it's imperative to identify an industry and go after it, not for a week or two, but until it take to do whatever we have to do to break them.
Yes, I agree.
Make sure the others looking will know that hey, you're next in line.
I agree. And you know, the thing is, and I've been saying this, they don't want our vote, but they will take our money.
They'll
We
take it off.
need, you know, we need to do exactly what you're saying and stop buying at these places that have eliminated DEI, that have maligned us. You know, we need to just stop catering to them.
Stop the
I
dollars.
agree.
Stop the dollars.
Stop the
We can
dollars.
suffer. All of us can suffer a little bit of some of the things. I mean, I know it's hard to pass by Chick-fil-A. I like Chick-fil-A, but there are alternatives. I
Yes.
can cook it myself, or there are other alternatives. We do have alternatives to what they are offering. They make it seem like we can't live without them. We can. I grew up on a farm and we grew our own food and stuff. You know, we can live without this stuff. It's a change for sure. It may be a little bit difficult, but it's either that or what we got now. It's like it's not County Cullen who said, "If we must die, let us not die like pigs cowering in a corner. But let us
Absolutely.
fight. Let us fight back. Don't die like a pig being slaughtered or a dog."
Yes. And I want
You
to
know,
respond to some of our comments here. Fuchina, she says, our power is our dollar. And Clifton, he says, true.
Clinton. That's my boy Clinton,
Clinton,
friend of mine.
he
Yeah.
says, true. And yes, our power is in our dollars, and we need to. Oh, okay. We got another comment here. She says, Professor Kenyatta opened up my eyes to.
The
I need my
eyes to our
glasses.
more vast Black history years ago when he taught a class from a book called The Journey of the Songhai People. Those are my mentors, the guys who wrote that book. They were two of my pivotal mentors.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here, Zita Lung. Okay, sorry if I messed up your name. Okay. I can't believe we're really short on time here, but go ahead.
The other thing that I think that needs to be done is this Epstein file thing.
Yes.
We need to everywhere we go is echo that every day, everywhere, because that's one of the things they're running from. That's why they got this war going on. They got the green water in the pool, you know, just to keep your eyes off of that.
Yes.
And I'll share a story. In Rome, in ancient Rome, Rome. One of the senators, if you know the history, Rome had a thing with Carthage. They hated Carthage and they tried to defeat Carthage, but they couldn't. But there was a senator, and his name escapes me right now, but every time he would get up in the Senate to say anything, he would begin and end his speeches with these words: Carthage must be destroyed. And he echoed that over and over, and soon the whole nation began to echo that simple saying, Carthage must be destroyed. And when they did attack Carthage, got the upper hand, we know them as the Punic Wars 1, 2, and 3. The last one, when they finally conquered Carthage, what they did to make sure the Carthaginians did not come back was they spread salt in the fields and plowed it in the fields so that they would not be able to grow anything.
And you know, that's like when Trump went to New York. They did sage. They did a sage thing
Yeah,
all
yeah.
over. And I mean, as a point that there are things we need to do to protect ourselves and to move forward. I know that was off the beaten path, but
Right.
I thought about it. But anyway, go ahead.
But with the Epstein files, because the media, the American media, corporate sponsored media has been bought. If you're watching any of them, you're not getting the news. You need to watch Democracy Now! Or any of the alternative news,
Midas Touch,
people
John
sponsored
Lemon,
news
yes.
to get what's going on. And we have the platforms that we have until they knock us off of them. Every time we get on, you should be saying, Trump is a 34 convicted felon and he is implicated in the Epstein files. We need to see the Epstein files so that we want it rattling around in their heads or they can't get away from it. Stomp them with it like a ghost, is what I say. Because that's the thing that they don't want, the boycotting and that piece. Those are the two suggestions that I offer. And then, of course, my course.
Yes.
But there are other things. We're going to have to start looking at alternatives to what we have become accustomed to. And I think Rita, Dr. Rita had said something a few minutes ago. I forget what it was. But or strategizing. Like, well, you look at the civil rights movement and so forth, or enslavement. They were always strategizing in the light of hopelessness, pure hopelessness. They were still saying, we can do it. We can do it. And that's what we have to do now. I see my cousin Gregory is on here
yes, and he says, hit the pockets. Yes, Dr. Abdul Shabazz in DC. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So Rita, what are your solutions and suggestions for what we're experiencing right now?
So the first thing that comes to mind to me is something that organizational development folks say, which is that strategy eats culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So strategy is really important. I mean, we've all both talked to that. What's also really important is the culture that underlies the strategy. And so when I think about white supremacy, I don't just think about the people in power who are using white supremacy in all the ways that they are. I think about the liberals and left and all the ways that we have our own unexamined white supremacy. And I think that internalized white supremacy is actually what strengthens what's happening on the right. And so I think it's easy to point fingers. There are places, I'm not really contradicting what you're saying. I'm saying on top of that, along with strategizing and deciding what we're going to say no to, because basically what you guys are talking about is what we're going to say firmly no to, which is I'm not investing where I'm not appreciated. I'm not investing where my dignity as a human being is not insured, right? Not insured, guaranteed, and honored, right? So that I agree with that. And there's also this internal work that I think it needs to happen, where we look ourselves in the mirror and we see, okay, I'm profoundly disgusted by what's happening in politics right now. Which part of that is me? Like, how do I show up that way, right? Where am I dishonest? Where am I guilty? Where am I? Because the culture only shifts if we are shifting with it. And the day that we no longer as a country are a profoundly narcissist nation, we will no longer need to elect narcissists. And it's bigger than left and right. I think there's something about how our culture works and the parts of our culture that are hiding. and the importance of coming back to life, to what's life affirming, to relationship, to joy, to rest, and many of the things that unfortunately our country in a mainstream culture kind of way does not foster or make easy for those of us who try to make it a daily
Yes.
routine.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Okay. This was powerful. And
I want to say actually one more thing, because this
Okay.
is a lot what I work with people when I coach, is how do we walk with integrity even in our communities, in our families, and in the programs we create. Because I've looked at so many programs as an evaluator over the years, and people always want to point fingers about who should change out there. But the truly transformative programs that I've witnessed, the ones that go viral and make change, like even when the founders themselves are gone, are the ones where the founders themselves in those initial early stages were really impeccable at looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, hey, we have to do better. This is a blind spot. This is where we can grow. This is where we can do better.
yes.
It's just like a team, a football team, basketball team. You got to look at the tape. You got to look at the video to see what we did good, what we did wrong. How can we improve this? And instead of just throwing your hands up and giving up, I'm saying, well, we can't do anything. We can do a lot. There's a saying that never underestimate the ability of a small group of people to change the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can look at, I mean,
There was only one
actually,
Martin Luther King.
true. However, we can look at how just small groups, I mean, for example, look at MAGA. They're a small group in comparison to all of us. And yet we are allowing them to dictate, control, and just take over our country. And we don't need to do that. Vote, vote, vote. That's all I can say. We got to vote. We got to get out there and vote. It is absolutely critical. Okay, we have another comment, and we're out of time.
You got to vote, and you got to hold the people that we put in the office accountable.
Absolutely.
We got to hit the others in the pocket.
Absolutely.
That it matters most.
Absolutely. Can you read what this says? I need my glasses.
The Professor is my big bro, and the journey to song our people is a must read because it sums up the degree of brainwashing that has hindered our understanding of who we are. Yeah, so that's my brother Kenny.
Absolutely. Awesome. And then
my little brothers, my little brothers.
Thank you for being here and chiming in. We can create a shift collectively as a people, and that's what we got to do.
It's true.
That's what we've got to do. We cannot sit back and expect someone else to do what we can do and need to do.
Precisely.
Just as John Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And right now, our country needs saving. And right now, each of us need to take responsibility. And the first thing you can do is vote. Don't let anyone deter you from doing that. We've ran out of time.
Yes. Well, thank you, Sister
This
Vera.
This was fabulous,
for
Vera.
having us.
Thank you. I need you guys to come back. I'm actually booking into October, and maybe if you can come back before voting in November, so that we can hone in on this stuff. This is critical. This is in my opinion, this is one of the most critical shows that I can do to help people understand what is going on in our country, what is going on among ourselves, how we can make a difference, and we start by voting. All right, listen. Thank you guys. And
thank you for having us.
Okay, hold on. Don't leave. Okay, I'm going to pull you down, but don't leave. Listen, thank you all who chimed in today. This is such an important topic, and we all need to figure out what it is we can do to make a difference. And the first thing we can do is vote. You got to vote. Get everybody in your families to vote. If not, we will continue along this path. Is that what we want? High gas, high food, no jobs. Is this what you want? Okay, I'm finished. All right. Thank you all for listening, and God bless you. And I'll see you on Thursday with another fantastic guest.